So we're up in the lab, and I'm going to look at modifying the EEPROM we programmed a little while ago for the project. So we know that we need to bend the top 4 pins out. There's pin 28, pin 27, pin 26, or no, I mean pin 1 and pin 2. I need to bend out pin 23, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 28, 27, 23. So we want to bend out this guy. Oh, we also want to bend out 26. And I want to bend out pin 20. So 23, 2, 21, 23, 22, 21, 20. And that should be 15, 16, 17. 18, 19, 20. So I have bent out the pins for our connection diagram. I'm thinking I'm going to do this setup a little bit different than the end product that we would normally do, because I'm going to use these little pin headers to make my electrical connections. Well, they don't want to fit on the pins. Well, I may have to solder in some pins, but I'm going to go ahead and use cables like this inside of the computer so I can plug onto the various devices as we test, because I'm going to do a 28C 256 and a 29F010, and we'll go through kind of the same things to make it easier to replace the ROMs. Normally you would do soldering the wires directly to the pins. So I've got these bent out pretty straight. The idea here, again, is that the bottom 24 pins are going to go into a socket, but we don't want these 3 bend out pins here to make contact into the socket. They need to be floating, so they are folded well up out of the way. I'm going to trim off the excess lead. So notice that I've taken, hopefully this is in video, the narrow part of the lead, and I've trimmed it off, leaving the shoulder. And that way I've got something to solder to. And I don't have all that extra lead length poking out into the wind, as Dave Jones would say, flapping in the breeze. So anyhow, I have trimmed those down. The soldering pencil is idling. I will go ahead and tin these up, make them a little easier to work with. As always, it's a bit difficult working around the camera here. Get on the good glasses so I can actually see what I'm doing. And we'll just tin these up, make them a little easier to work with. So, the first thing we need to do is jumper pin 1 to pin 28. That pulls VPP to the +5 rail. Because it's +5, I will use a red wire, and I'm just going to use a piece of wrap wire in this case. It's nice and small, and it'll work well for this. What you use is kind of up to you. I have misplaced a little wire stripper. Here's the little wire stripper. I will strip off a bit of wire here. And we'll take and bend that so it'll sit down onto the shoulder. I'm actually sitting here debating how I'm going to approach this, because what I want to do is also solder one of these little pins on. And this pin in this case will be able to be used, as I kind of described earlier. I can pick this up so that the jumper wires will be coming off the main PCB, and the computer will be able to be plugged on and off easily to make experimenting with different ROMs easier. So he's going to need to tack onto there. So what I'm actually going to do to make this a little simpler is I'm going to strip off. Maybe I'm going to strip off. Trim that down. There was a lot of tension on that wire. I don't want to broke it. So I'm going to strip a bit off. I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to wrap it around the pin. Sorry, I'm trying to do this on camera. And by wrapping it around, I get a good mechanical connection as well. When you're soldering, a good mechanical connection is as important as a good soldering connection. Using solder to simply hold things together, I've done it, it works, but it's not the best approach. Strip off some insulation from him. Got the length on that pretty good. And I'll go ahead and wrap this around here as well. So I've got a good mechanical connection there. That'll jumper the VCC to the VPP pin, which is required. Now we need a way to bring power onto the board. It will be by attaching the pin header. In this case, I'm going to connect the pin header to the left side because I know on the Model I motherboard the easiest place to pick up power from a V on the PCB board happens to be off to the left. So he will get soldered onto there. This might be a bit interesting to do. As you know, you never have enough hands, and that little pin is going to get rather warm rather quick. So let me cover those up. I'm going to go ahead and tin the end of the pin, and we'll see if we can do this. Ouch. Pin is still rather warm. We'll see if I can do this. Well, maybe I can't do this. Not a fan of the spring-loaded needle nose at times. They often get in the way. What I'm hoping is just to be able for this to just tack that on there. You normally wouldn't do this. Actually, that could have been done mechanically a little bit nicer. I'm going to remove the hem and do this slightly different. Since there's two adjacent pins there, side by side, I'm actually going to pull two pins off of the pin header here and attach them as a unit. And that way they can share a little bit of the mechanical stress between them. Or as it all assumes, you can get solder to flow. Sure, those pins are still nice and warm. It would really help if I could quit dropping the pins. Let's see if I can actually pull this off with somewhat visibility into the camera. That's sufficient to tack one side. It's crooked, but I honestly don't care for this experiment. That'll let me bring in power on pin 1 and A12 on pin 2. Now I'm going to need some black wrap wire for the ground hookup, and I will follow the same process we did before. I will just, oops. Get a few wraps. Oops. Get a few wraps around that pin. These needle nose, a little return spring in them, has gotten messed up. It makes it rather difficult to deal with them. That's the little clicking you hear when I squeeze them. So that is the A14 connection that we're going to ground. We're going to take A14 to output enable, which is down here. We'll strip him off. And I will do both of these at once. And I will take these two pieces of wrap wire and I will spin them together just so I can wrap them around that pin at the same time. We come down to the output enable pin, do a couple of good spins on it so we get a good mechanical connection. Trim the excess. Solder it up. And in this case, we're going to connect it to the ground pin here, pin 14. However, we don't want to trim this pin off or bend it out. So what I'll do is catch the wire up around the elbow in that, and then I'll solder it up high on the elbow. You don't want to get solder down onto the pin where it enters the socket, because that'll increase the diameter of the pin, and it won't make as good a connection in the socket if the part's put in and out, in and out. It'll weaken the socket. It looks like if I trimmed it right about there, I'll get an acceptable length. Again, doing this on camera. Is always interesting. And I've got a good wrap up high. I don't know how well you can see that. The black wire is wrapped up high on the shoulder of that pin. I can just tack it on with a bit of solder up there high and not have the solder flow down onto the rest of the pin, so we get a good electrical connection. I think that's got it. And it has. We've got a good electrical connection. So we've got a VPP hook to VCC with a pin to bring 5 volts in. We've got a pin here to bring in A12. We've got the A14 pin up here high. Jumper it around to output enable, and both of those are grounded. And now what I need to do is add 2 more pin headers to pick up these 2 pins. And I'm going to do that by snapping off 4 pins here. Sometimes you can pull these pins out, sometimes you can't. I'll pull these 2 pins out. That'll get soldered there. And we will have this ROM set up to test with. So one of the reasons we programmed this and verified it ahead of time is with all these pins modified, it would be very difficult to get this part to program again. Very difficult. So if I can keep from touching the pin that's about to get heated, I don't know if I can or not. That may burn me into my fingernail a bit. That didn't tack. Oh, this is... Ooh, a solder bridge. I'm doing so well. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble getting that to line up. What the heck? Oh, That is really frustrating. That will not solder onto there. What the heck? As always, don't have enough hands. I have melded that soldering on it. I really don't know why that one pin just won't grab. That is really bizarre. Prep another little pin header up. You know what? Get a nice flow on there. I'm not sure why the two won't join. That is really rather odd. And we'll try it again here, and actually I'll try a little cheat maybe. See if I can use this as a holder. Oh, what the heck? You're seeing it. Come on, actually solder up. There you go. Like I say, I would never do this as a productional solution. This is simply to be able to test with. It's not pretty, but for what I need to do, this will do the job. I've got a couple of pins sticking out here to pick up A13 and A11, A12 and VPP on this side. I'm just going to take 4 of these kind of cables and we'll cut the plug end off. There's vias on the motherboard that I'll be able to solder the wires through so I get a good connection to the motherboard. And I'll just be able to just slide these on for testing. Say it's not pretty. Normally I would tack the wire directly to the pin if it was going to be a permanent installation. But there's a bit of build. Next step is, of course, get this down on the computer. Actually get the computer modified to get jumper wires in. And I go from there. So in the background of the shot I have the my hack Model I that I actually did the original work on to kind of figure this out and make it work. And then I have my workaday unit down here on the turntable that I'm going to go ahead and modify. The first thing I want to do is clean out the vias where the wires are going to be attached. The first via picks up VCC. The color coding back here in the background is inconsistent with what I'm going to do here. I'm going to actually clean it up. So the first via to be opened up. A via is just simply a hole on the printed circuit board that connects the top of the board to the bottom and doesn't have, you know, a capacitor or an IC pin in it. It makes a great spot for running a wire through and getting a good solid connection. So that via there will be VCC. I have one up here high by the jumper, and it's actually got a wire in it already, and it's an orange wire from the daughter board mod. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that orange wire out. If this doesn't work, I'll know where to put it back in. And I will clean out this via. The next via I want to get at has the red wire in it. So it's this one. So you can see the daughter board is picking up the signals from the same place I'm picking them up. Should have been this guy right here, although it didn't clean out very well. As always, it left a bit of residue on the board. Get my better glasses on so I can see that a little clearer. Yeah, that left a lot of nastiness on the board. That did not clean out real well. So we'll add some solder. and do it again. That's better. So we have that via, and we have one up in here, and it's got the yellow wire in it. Sitting here wondering now if I should have just gone ahead and followed the color coding here that the daughter card used. It would have made this a little simpler, but it's not the colors I chose. Sorry about the arm in front of the camera. The daughter card, of course, flopping around. Quick visual look to make sure those are the same locations. There, there, and there. I really want the VCC tap on here to be red, which means I'm going to follow the color scheme I came up with. I've got my wires here. So in this case, orange ended up matching orange. So orange will go through this hole here. And we'll get soldered on there. It's always fun working around the camera. So let's see, orange is going to come to this pin. This pin is going to come to here, and I labeled it purple. I have the purple wire prepped. Shoot. I tried to slip down through, and as I reached for it, it fell the rest of the way through. Oh, come on. It's 98 plus degrees here, which is highly unusual. I think it's the hottest it's been here in the 20 years I've lived here. At the moment I'm working in the shop without the fan on, and it is very warm. The LED lighting makes it almost unbearable in here. So that would mean the blue wire picks up the signal here. Actually go through the hole and not spray or splay out. Looks like that didn't cut cleanly. And the red wire where I'm going to pick up power once I find it. And I'm picking up power right here. So, the 4 test wires are attached. We'll go ahead and pop this guy out. Our modified 27256 will go in the socket like that. For now, VCC will connect to here. A12 comes over to here. A11 comes to here, and this should be A13 comes to here. Oh, excuse me. So that matches, the blue matches, where the purple comes to matches, and we picked up power. Oh, excuse me. So the next step is to go try this. I do know that I need, in this pin jumper here, I need that last position jumpered for this to work. I don't really have a blank header to use for that. Maybe I'll throw a dip switch in there. See if I can dig up a dip switch quick. I think I've actually got one. No, those are 7 position, they won't work. Anyhow, I'll get that pin connected across. We'll take this downstairs, stick it in the system, and see what happens. So you're going to see this live. We started up a second ago. We're hooked up. Hopefully we'll see the level 2 basic prompt, and we do. Perfect. So let me put the keyboard back on. I've modified both of these boards. Do it with my keyboard modification to make it easier to put the keyboard on and off. I'll just set the keyboard down in place, bring the power up, and we are functioning off of the 27256 that we programmed and put into the unit. So very nice to have it again work on first test. I've been very lucky so far with these mods. I've probably just cursed myself, but as you can see, the daughter card has been removed. It's got a couple wires left attached to the system that I'll remove, but this gets rid of this daughter card. I just really dislike how that was done. Anyhow, oh, sorry about the bump. Let's play a bit. D equals 0, 10. Poke. A comma. Oops. D and 255. D equals D plus 1. I have to actually think here. Next address. D equals D plus 1, so we get an offset. Go to 10. And that should write. This program will of course crash with an overflow. But for now, I'll just let it sit here and run. So there's the lowercase mod. Well, this one isn't actually modded. Well, it is modded for lowercase. And I'll just let this sit and run, but there it is. The 256 EEPROM is put in place. The next one we'll do is a 28C 256. It'll be slightly different to wire up. And we'll see if I can make that work. Bye.